Why Great Ideas Only Come When You Stop Chasing Them. A motivational audiobook by Astrian. You have felt it before. That restless feeling in your chest that tells you to move, to search, to grab hold of something brilliant before someone else does. You stay up late, scroll through endless feeds and squeeze your mind until it hurts, hoping a great idea will pop out like a coin from a machine. You attend the seminars, read the books, and fill your notebook with plans that never quite feel like the one. The more you push, the further the idea seems to run away from you. It hides in the shadows of your exhaustion, just out of reach, teasing you with its absence. You start to believe you are not creative enough or smart enough to catch it. But what if the problem was never you, and the problem was the chase itself? This book is here to tell you a different story. It is a story that flips everything you have been taught about success and creativity on its head. The greatest thinkers, artists, and builders in history did not force their breakthroughs through sheer willpower alone. They discovered a secret that most people never learn, which is that ideas are like wild animals. You cannot trap them by running after them with loud noise and frantic energy. You must learn to stand still, to quiet your breath, and to let them come to you on their own terms. This book will show you how to stop being an exhausted hunter and start becoming a calm, magnetic presence that ideas naturally want to find. The journey begins when you finally put down the net and open your hands. Chapter 1: The Trap of the Eureka Moment. We have all seen the movies where a genius slams their hand on the table and shouts with wild eyes as the perfect solution appears in a flash. That single moment is what we have been trained to wait for, to chase after, and to feel inadequate when it does not arrive. The truth is that those dramatic moments are not the result of frantic effort, but the result of a mind that was prepared and then allowed to rest. When you chase a eureka moment, you are essentially trying to force a lightning bolt to strike a specific spot on command. Your brain becomes a tense, crowded room where no single thought can find space to breathe. The pressure you apply to yourself is the very thing that locks the door on the ideas you want most. You believe that working harder is the answer, but working harder often just digs you deeper into a hole of frustration. Real breakthroughs do not come from squeezing the mind, but from softening it. Think about the last time you forgot a name, and the harder you tried to remember, the further it slipped away. Then, the moment you started talking about something else, the name appeared in your mouth like it had never left. This is the same exact mechanism that governs every great idea you will ever have. Your conscious mind is a terrible place to search for buried treasure because it is too busy making noise and raising alarms. The real treasure lies in the deeper parts of your mind, the parts that only speak when you stop shouting. When you chase an idea, you send a signal of panic to your brain, and panic shuts down creativity instantly. Your brain prioritizes survival over poetry, and it sees your panic as a threat that needs to be managed. The key is to send the opposite signal, a signal of safety, calm, and relaxed attention. Only then will the deeper mind feel safe enough to send its gifts upward. Most of human history's greatest discoveries happen not in the laboratory at 3 p.m., but in the quiet moments just after giving up. Archimedes did not solve the problem of the king's crown while staring at a scroll, but while lowering himself into a warm bath. Isaac Newton did not unlock the secrets of gravity while forcing equations, but while sitting under a tree and letting his mind wander freely. These stories are not just charming tales from the past, they are blueprints for how your own mind works best. The common element in every story is that the person had stepped away from the problem long enough to let the pressure dissolve. They had stopped squeezing their brain and allowed their thoughts to float like clouds in an open sky. When you create that kind of openness, the answer does not have to be forced. It simply floats into view. The eureka moment is not something you manufacture. It is something you allow. The problem with chasing is that it tricks you into believing you are making progress when you are actually running in place. You fill your calendar with brainstorming sessions. You buy expensive notebooks, and you tell everyone you are working on something big. All of this activity feels productive, but it often serves as a mask for the fear that you have nothing yet to show. You mistake motion for progress, and you wear your exhaustion like a badge of honor to prove how hard you are trying. This is a dangerous trap because it convinces you that if you just push a little more, the idea will finally break. But pushing is exactly what keeps the door closed, and the more you push, the tighter it seals. You are not lacking effort, you are lacking permission to stop efforting so much. The greatest gift you can give your next big idea is to step back and let it breathe. Imagine your mind as a garden that you have been frantically digging through every day to find a buried seed. You tear up the soil, throw dirt everywhere, and wonder why nothing beautiful is growing. You blame the garden for being empty, when the truth is that you have not given it a single moment of stillness to let anything take root. A garden does not grow because you dig it up constantly. It grows because you plant the seed, water it, and then walk away to let the sun and rain do their work. Your mind operates exactly the same way, and it requires the same kind of patient trust. You must plant the question, give it a little attention, and then go live your life while the magic happens underground. The most beautiful ideas are not the ones you unearth with force, but the ones that surprise you by breaking through the surface when you least expect it. Stop digging and start trusting the soil you have already prepared. This chapter is your invitation to release the grip you have on your own mind. You are going to learn that the pressure you put on yourself is not your friend. It is the warden keeping your best ideas locked away. The goal is not to stop thinking, but to stop thinking with a clenched jaw and a racing heart. You will begin to see that your most creative moments have always come when you were relaxed, when you were laughing, or when you were doing something that had nothing to do with work. Those moments are not accidents, they are proof of how your mind was designed to function. You were never meant to chase ideas, you were meant to attract them by becoming a person who is open, curious, and at ease. The Eureka moment is not a trophy to be hunted, it is a visitor to be welcomed. And the door only opens from the inside with a quiet click when you finally stop pounding on it. Chapter 2. Your brain is a bad dog and how to stop yelling at it. Think about the way a dog behaves when you call it with anger and frustration in your voice. It does not run toward you with excitement. It tucks its tail, lowers its head, and freezes in place because it senses danger. Your brain is exactly the same, and it responds to your inner voice with the same instinct of fear and hesitation. When you sit down and demand that your brain produce a brilliant idea right now, you are essentially yelling at a nervous puppy. Your brain hears the sharp tone, feels the pressure, and decides that the safest thing to do is to give you nothing at all. It shuts down the creative pathways and retreats into a corner of silence. You then become frustrated with the silence, so you yell louder, and the brain curls up even tighter. This cycle is the reason so many people sit for hours in front of a blank page with nothing to show for it. The solution is to change your tone entirely, to speak to your brain like you would speak to a loyal and eager friend. You need to replace the voice of demand with the voice of invitation, and replace the clenched fist with an open hand. Imagine sitting down and saying to yourself, "Hey, no pressure, let us just play around and see what happens." This small shift in language sends a completely different signal to your brain, a signal of safety and curiosity. Your brain hears this and slowly begins to uncurl its tail and look around with interest instead of fear. It starts to make connections, to pull up memories, and to offer small fragments of thought without worrying about being judged. The quality of your ideas is directly connected to the tone you use when you talk to yourself. A calm voice produces a calm mind, and a calm mind is where creativity loves to live. You have probably experienced this shift without even realizing it when you were in the shower or lying in bed at night. In those moments, you are not yelling at your brain to perform. You are simply letting it wander wherever it wants to go. The warm water or the soft pillow sends a signal of safety, and your brain responds by opening up its most interesting files. Suddenly, you remember something important, or you connect two unrelated thoughts, or you see a solution that had been hiding from you all day. This is not magic, it is biology, and it is the way your brain was designed to do its best work. The mistake is thinking that those moments are unreliable and that you need to force them to happen on command. But you cannot command a dog to be playful. You can only create an environment where playfulness feels natural. The same is true for your brain, and the environment you create determines everything. Let us talk about what happens when you stop yelling and start listening instead. Your brain is constantly generating thoughts, ideas, and connections even when you are not aware of it happening. The problem is that your loud inner critic drowns out most of these thoughts before they even reach your awareness. You have a gatekeeper in your mind that says, "That is stupid, that will not work, that has been done before," and it slams the door on idea after idea. When you stop yelling, you give those quiet thoughts a chance to be heard before the gatekeeper can reject them. You begin to notice the small sparks, the funny observations, and the strange combinations that your brain offers you for free. These small sparks are the raw material for every great idea, and they are always present when you are calm enough to see them. The greatest creative minds are simply the ones who learn to stop yelling long enough to collect these sparks. You might be wondering how to practice this new way of relating to your brain in your daily life. One simple method is to set aside 10 minutes each day where you give yourself permission to think about absolutely nothing important. You sit with a piece of paper and you write whatever comes, no matter how silly or small, without judging a single word. You are not trying to solve a problem or create a masterpiece. You are simply letting your brain know that you are a safe place to share. This practice rewires your relationship with your own mind, and it teaches your brain that it does not need to hide from you. Over time, your brain will begin to trust you more, and it will start offering you its best ideas without being demanded to do so. You become a friend to your mind instead of a boss, and friendship always produces better results than force. The dog that loves you will bring you its favorite toy without being asked. This chapter is asking you to make a promise to yourself that you will stop treating your brain like a machine that is broken. You are going to stop yelling at it for not producing on demand, and you are going to start appreciating the incredible work it does every moment. Your brain is not your enemy, it is your partner, and it has been waiting for you to treat it with kindness and patience. The next time you sit down to find an idea, take a deep breath and say something kind to yourself before you begin. Notice how your shoulders relax, how your breathing slows, and how the blank page feels less like an enemy. You are building a new relationship, one based on trust rather than demands, and that relationship will serve you for the rest of your life. Your brain is a good dog that has always wanted to help you. It just needed you to stop yelling so it could hear your real question. Now that you know this, you can finally begin to work together as the team you were always meant to be. Chapter 3: The Power of the Empty Notebook. There is something deeply uncomfortable about looking at an empty page, a blank screen, or a whiteboard with nothing written on it. That emptiness feels like a mirror reflecting our own perceived lack of ideas, and our instinct is to fill it as quickly as possible. We grab our pens and start scribbling anything, just to cover the emptiness, hoping that quantity will eventually lead to quality. But this fear of emptiness is actually the thing that keeps us stuck with average ideas and tired thoughts. An empty notebook is not a sign of failure. It is a field of infinite potential waiting for the right seeds to be planted. When you rush to fill it with noise, you are using up the precious space that could have held something truly special. You are treating emptiness like a problem to be solved, when emptiness is actually the most powerful tool you have. The greatest ideas in history were born from empty spaces that someone had the courage to leave open. Think of emptiness as a magnet that pulls interesting things toward it because it offers the one thing every idea craves, which is room to grow. A crowded room leaves no space for anything new to enter, and a crowded mind is the same way. When your calendar is packed, your to-do list is endless, and your thoughts are racing, there is simply no room for a fresh idea to land. The idea floats around your head looking for a place to sit, finds no empty chair, and drifts away to find someone else. This is why people often have their best ideas during vacations, long drives, or lazy Sunday mornings when the pressure is off. The emptiness of those moments creates a vacuum that ideas are naturally drawn to fill. You do not have to chase the idea, you just have to create enough empty space that the idea cannot help but fall into it. The power of emptiness is not about doing nothing. It is about creating the conditions where something meaningful can finally arrive. Let us talk about what it actually means to create empty space in a world that rewards constant busyness. It means protecting blocks of time in your week where you have no agenda, no goals, and no pressure to produce anything. It means leaving your phone in another room, turning off notifications, and letting your mind drift without a destination. It means sitting in a park, staring out a window, or lying on the floor with no purpose other than to be present. This feels uncomfortable at first because we have been trained to believe that every moment must be optimized for productivity. But the truth is that the most productive thing you can do is to regularly step away from productivity itself. The empty space you create is not wasted time. It is the soil where your next breakthrough will grow. Every minute you spend in intentional emptiness is an investment in the quality of every idea that follows. You might be surprised to learn that many of the world's most successful creators guard their empty time more fiercely than their busy time. They know that the busy time is when they execute and produce, but the empty time is where the vision comes from. Without the empty time, the busy time becomes just mechanical work without inspiration or soul. They schedule walks, they take naps, they stare at ceilings, and they refuse to apologize for it because they know the value it brings. They understand that ideas are not widgets to be manufactured on an assembly line. They are living things that need incubation. You cannot rush a seed to become a tree by watching it every second, and you cannot rush an idea by staring at it constantly. The empty time is when the roots grow deep, unseen and silent, preparing for the day when they will burst into the light. You deserve that same empty time, not as a reward for working hard, but as a necessary part of the creative process. Consider the physical act of keeping an empty notebook on your desk as a symbol of your new approach to ideas. That notebook is not there to be filled with frantic notes and half-formed thoughts that you will never read again. It is there to wait, patiently, for the moments when a real idea lands softly and asks for a place to rest. You do not grab it and force it to yield ideas. You let it sit quietly until an idea is strong enough to come to you. When an idea does arrive, you open the notebook and write it down with calm respect, knowing that you did not force it. You become a curator of ideas rather than a factory, and you value quality over the illusion of quantity. This shift in how you treat the empty page changes your entire relationship with creativity. The page is no longer your enemy demanding to be filled. It is your ally waiting to catch what is truly worth keeping. Your empty notebook is not a problem. It is your greatest creative partner. This chapter is your permission slip to stop fearing the empty spaces in your life and to start celebrating them instead. You are going to look at your calendar and carve out 1 hour this week that belongs to absolutely no one and nothing. You are going to sit in that hour with no plan, no phone, and no pressure. Just watching the world or your own thoughts. You are going to notice how uncomfortable it feels at first, and you are going to stay in that discomfort because you know what is on the other side. Slowly, you will begin to notice that ideas start floating toward you during those empty hours, ideas that had no space to appear before. You will feel your mind relax, your breathing deepen, and your creativity begin to flow without effort. This is the power of emptiness, and it has always been available to you, waiting for you to stop running long enough to claim it. The empty notebook is not a void, it is a promise, and it is time for you to see what it promises to bring you. Chapter 4. Stop climbing, start wandering. Imagine you are standing at the base of a mountain with a map in your hand that shows only one path to the top. You have been told that the only way to succeed is to follow that path, to climb steadily, and to never look away from the summit. You put your head down, you start climbing, and you ignore everything that is not directly on your route. You pass by beautiful forests, hidden waterfalls, and strange rock formations, but you do not stop because you are focused on the climb. After hours of effort, you reach the top, and you look around feeling accomplished but strangely empty. You realize that you saw nothing of the mountain, experienced nothing unexpected, and arrived with no stories to tell. This is how most of us approach our goals and our ideas, treating them like a mountain to be conquered. We believe that the straight line is the only path, but the straight line is often the path that misses everything worth finding. Now imagine a different approach, where you set out with a general direction in mind but no fixed path to follow. You wander through the woods, you follow a stream because it looks interesting, and you climb a ridge just to see what is on the other side. You are not lost, you are exploring, and every turn brings a new discovery that you never could have planned. You collect ideas like a child collects interesting rocks, not because they fit a plan, but because they spark joy in the moment. You climb the mountain eventually, but you arrive with a backpack full of treasures and a heart full of stories. The summit is still there, waiting for you, but the journey to it has become rich with meaning and discovery. This is the difference between climbing and wandering, and it is the difference between forcing ideas and finding them. Wandering is not aimless, it is purposeful in a deeper way, trusting that the path will reveal itself as you walk. The problem with climbing is that it focuses your attention so narrowly that you become blind to everything outside your chosen path. You create a tunnel vision that filters out anything that does not look like the goal you set at the beginning. But great ideas rarely look like what you expected them to look like, and they almost never appear on the path you plan to take. They show up in the unexpected detour, in the conversation you almost skipped, in the project you started just for fun. When you are climbing, you see these detours as distractions that will slow you down and take you off course. When you are wandering, you see them as invitations, as potential sources of the very thing you were seeking all along. The greatest discoveries in history were made by people who allowed themselves to wander away from their original question. They were curious enough to follow the strange signal, and brave enough to leave the planned path behind. Let us talk about how wandering applies to the creative process and the search for ideas. When you sit down with a rigid plan for what your idea must be, you are climbing a mountain that might not even contain what you need. You force your thoughts into a shape that feels safe and familiar, and you reject anything that does not fit. But the idea that is truly meant for you might require you to go in a direction you never considered before. It might require you to combine two things that seem unrelated, or to explore a field you know nothing about, or to start from a place of play rather than purpose. Wandering is the practice of saying yes to these detours, of following your curiosity even when it does not make sense on paper. You trust that the connections will reveal themselves later, and that the wandering was not wasted time but essential exploration. Some of the most successful companies and creative works in the world started as a side project, a hobby, or a complete accident. They were found by people who were willing to wander. You might feel that wandering is inefficient, that you do not have time to explore when you have goals to meet and deadlines to hit. But consider how much time you have already spent climbing the wrong mountain, forcing ideas that never quite felt right. Consider how many hours you have sat in front of a blank screen, trying to force a path that was never going to work. Wandering might feel slower in the moment, but it gets you to the right place faster than climbing the wrong path ever could. It saves you from the wasted effort of building something that does not fit who you are or what you truly want. It fills your mind with diverse experiences, random knowledge, and unexpected connections that become the fuel for original ideas. The person who wanders builds a rich internal library that the climber never has time to collect. When you finally do need to produce something great, you have a wealth of material to draw from that no one else possesses. This chapter is an invitation to loosen your grip on the map and to trust your sense of curiosity as your guide. You are going to give yourself permission to take the scenic route, to follow an interesting thread without knowing where it leads. You are going to start a project just because it sounds fun, not because it fits a 5-year plan. You are going to have conversations with people outside your field, read books outside your genre, and explore places you have never been. You are going to notice that as you wander, you begin to see patterns and connections that were invisible to you before. You are going to stumble upon ideas that feel like gifts, ideas that you never could have manufactured through force. The summit will still be there, waiting for you, but you will arrive with a much richer understanding of the world and yourself. Stop climbing the mountain that someone else drew on a map and start wandering the one that is calling to you right now. Chapter 5. The secret ingredient is boredom. We live in a world that has declared war on boredom, and we have armed ourselves with phones, tablets, and endless streams of content to win that war. The moment we feel a twinge of boredom, we reach for a screen, scroll through videos, or fill the silence with noise and distraction. We have convinced ourselves that boredom is a problem to be solved, a waste of time to be avoided at all costs. But what if boredom is not the enemy? And what if it is actually the secret ingredient that your creativity has been starving for? What if the moments you have been running from are the very moments where your best ideas are waiting to be found? Boredom is the space where your mind finally stops reacting to the world and starts listening to itself. It is the quiet after the music stops, where you can hear the thoughts that were always there beneath the noise. The most creative people in history did not fear boredom. They embraced it as a necessary part of their process. Think about what happens in your brain when you are truly bored, with no phone, no book, no conversation, just you and your own thoughts. At first, your mind rebels, it feels uncomfortable, and you experience a craving for stimulation that is almost physical. Your brain is so used to constant input that the absence of it feels like a withdrawal from a drug. But if you stay in that boredom, something remarkable begins to happen after a few minutes of discomfort. Your mind starts to wander, to drift, to make connections that it never had time to make before. Memories surface, questions arise, and ideas begin to form like clouds gathering in a previously empty sky. This is your brain's default mode network activating, the system responsible for creativity, self-reflection, and long-term planning. You cannot activate this system while you are scrolling through a feed, because it requires the very boredom you have been avoiding. The ideas you have been chasing are hiding in the boredom you have been running from. Let us look at the lives of people who have produced extraordinary work and see how they treated boredom. Many of them built boredom into their daily routines intentionally, scheduling long walks, hours of solitude, and time without any agenda. They understood that the mind needs fallow periods, just like a field needs to lie empty to restore its fertility. They did not see these periods as unproductive. They saw them as the most productive part of their entire process. The ideas that came to them during these bored hours were often the ones that defined their careers and changed their fields. They protected their boredom fiercely, because they knew it was not empty time. It was where the real work happened. You can do the same by carving out pockets of boredom in your own life, starting with just 10 minutes a day. Leave your phone in another room, sit by a window, and let your mind do nothing. The discomfort will fade, and something beautiful will begin to grow in its place. You might be thinking that you are too busy to be bored, that there is too much to do and too little time to waste on doing nothing. But consider the possibility that your busyness is actually making you less effective, not more. When you fill every moment with input, you never give your brain a chance to process, to sort, and to create. You are constantly consuming, but you never have time to digest what you have consumed, and creativity comes from digestion. The busiest people are often the least creative, because they have no space left for the unexpected to emerge. The person who allows themselves to be bored is not wasting time. They are giving their brain the processing power it needs to generate original thought. A field that is planted every season without rest becomes barren, and a mind that is constantly stimulated becomes the same way. Your boredom is not a luxury. It is a necessity, and it is time to treat it as such. Consider the role of boredom in your own history of great ideas, and you will likely see a clear pattern. Your best ideas probably came when you were driving, showering, walking, or lying in bed unable to sleep. They came in the moments when you were not trying to think of anything, when your mind was free to wander without purpose. Those moments are all forms of boredom, times when your brain was not being fed external stimulation and had to entertain itself. This is not a coincidence. It is the natural state of a healthy mind that is allowed to operate as it was designed. The problem is that we have eliminated so many of these moments from our lives that we have effectively starved our creativity. We have traded boredom for constant distraction, and we have lost the wellspring of ideas that boredom provides. The good news is that you can reclaim these moments starting today, simply by choosing to put the phone down and let yourself be bored. Your next great idea is waiting for you in the boredom you have been avoiding. This chapter is your challenge to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, to sit in boredom until it becomes a friend rather than a foe. You are going to take one walk this week without music, without podcasts, without anything in your ears but the world around you. You are going to notice how strange it feels at first, and how your hand instinctively reaches for your pocket where your phone usually lives. You are going to resist that urge, and you are going to let your mind wander wherever it wants to go. You are going to be surprised by what comes up, by the memories you had forgotten, by the questions you had not asked, by the ideas that have been waiting for this moment. You are going to realize that you are not boring. You are a universe of thoughts waiting to be explored. The secret ingredient to creativity is not more information, it is less distraction, and boredom is the door to that less. Open the door and step through. Your ideas are waiting for you on the other side. Chapter 6: How to Ask, Then Get Out of the Way. There is an art to asking a question in a way that your mind can actually answer, and most of us have never been taught this art. We ask questions like, "What is my big idea?" or "How do I become successful?" And then we stare at the wall waiting for an answer that never comes. These questions are too big, too vague, and too pressured to ever receive a useful response from your brain. They create a sense of overwhelm that shuts down the very thinking process you are trying to activate. The art of asking is about crafting a question that is specific enough to give your mind direction, but open enough to allow for surprise. It is about planting a seed, not demanding a tree, and trusting that the growth will happen in its own time. When you master this art, you will find that your mind is eager to answer. It just needed a question it could work with. You stop chasing and you start inviting, and the answers begin to flow like water finding its own path. Think of your question as a message you drop into a deep well, and then you walk away to let the water rise to meet it. If you stand at the top of the well and shout into it, demanding an answer immediately, you will only hear your own echo. The water needs time to gather, to rise, to fill the space you have created with your question. This is why the most powerful questions are often the ones you ask and then forget about, letting your subconscious work on them in the background. You plant the question before you go to sleep, and you wake up with an answer that feels like it came from nowhere. You ask a question before a long walk, and halfway through the walk, the answer appears like a gift you did not earn. You are not the one who produces the answer. You are the one who creates the conditions for the answer to emerge. Your job is to ask the right question, and then to get out of your own way so the answer can find you. Let us talk about how to craft the kind of question that your brain actually wants to answer. The question must be specific enough to give your mind a target, but not so specific that it leaves no room for creativity. Instead of asking, "What should I write?" you might ask, "What is a story that only I can tell?" Instead of asking, "How do I grow my business?" you might ask, "What is one small change that would make my customers smile?" Instead of asking, "What is my purpose?" you might ask, "What did I love doing when I was 10 years old?" These questions are invitations rather than demands, and they open doors rather than building walls. They give your brain a clear direction to explore while leaving plenty of room for discovery along the way. A good question feels like a key turning in a lock. You feel the click, and then the door swings open to reveal possibilities you had not seen. Spend time crafting your question, because the quality of your answer depends entirely on the quality of the question you ask. Once you have asked your question, the hardest part begins, which is learning to let go and trust the process. Your instinct will be to keep thinking about the question, to keep pushing, to keep trying to force the answer to appear. This is the equivalent of digging up the seed every day to see if it has grown, which only ensures that it never will. You must ask the question, and then you must genuinely release it, letting it drift into the background of your mind. You go about your day, you do your work, you live your life, and you trust that the answer is forming beneath the surface. You will find that answers often come when you are doing something completely unrelated to the question you asked. You will be washing dishes, driving home, or talking to a friend, and suddenly the answer will be there, fully formed, as if it had always been waiting. This is not magic. It is your subconscious mind working on the problem while your conscious mind was busy with other things. You have to trust that this process works, because it does, and because you have no other choice but to trust it. You might be skeptical that such a passive approach can produce real, valuable answers to important questions, but consider that some of the greatest scientific discoveries, artistic breakthroughs, and business innovations came from this exact process. Scientists who stopped working on a problem and went for a walk, only to return with the solution clear in their mind. Writers who could not find the right words, gave up, and woke up the next morning with the perfect sentence waiting for them. Inventors who tried everything failed, and then had the answer appear while they were doing something entirely different. These stories are not exceptions. They are examples of how the mind works when you give it a question, and then get out of its way. Your mind is a powerful problem-solving machine, but it needs space, time, and trust to do its best work. You cannot force the solution any more than you can force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. The bloom happens when the conditions are right, and the conditions are trust, patience, and a question worth answering. This chapter is your guide to becoming a master of the question, to learning how to ask in a way that your mind cannot resist answering. You are going to take one important question you have been struggling with, and you are going to rewrite it in a way that feels like an invitation. You are going to write that question on a piece of paper, read it once, and then put the paper away without thinking about it further. You are going to go about your day, and you are going to notice the moments when your mind tries to grab the question and force it. You are going to gently release it again, trusting that the answer will come when it is ready, not when you demand it. You are going to be surprised when the answer arrives in a moment you least expected, feeling obvious and perfect and inevitable. You are going to realize that you never needed to chase the answer. You only needed to ask the question correctly and then have the patience to wait. The answer has always been inside you. It was just waiting for the right question to call it out. Chapter 7. The Myth of the Lone Genius. We have been fed a story for generations that creativity is a solitary act, that genius happens in isolation, and that great ideas come from brilliant individuals working alone. The story goes that the lone genius locks themselves in a room, battles their demons, and emerges with a masterpiece that changes the world. This story is powerful and romantic, but it is also almost entirely false when you look at how ideas actually happen. The truth is that every great idea is a collaboration, a conversation, a web of influences that stretches across people, time, and disciplines. Even the most solitary artist is building on the work of those who came before, responding to the world around them, and shaped by countless unseen hands. The myth of the lone genius does more than just misrepresent history. It also isolates us and makes us feel that we must carry the weight of creativity alone. When you believe that ideas must come from you and you alone, you cut yourself off from the richest source of ideas available, which is other people. Think about the last time you had a truly great idea and trace back where it really came from. You were probably talking to someone, and something they said sparked a thought that you had never had before. Or you were listening to a podcast, and a guest mentioned something that connected to a problem you were working on. Or you were reading a book, and a single sentence opened a door in your mind that you had not known was there. Your idea did not spring fully formed from your own head. It was a response to something that came from outside of you. This is not a weakness. It is how creativity works, and it is why connection is more important than isolation. The people who produce the most original work are not the ones who lock themselves away. They are the ones who engage with the world most deeply. They are curious about what others are doing. They ask questions, they borrow, they combine, and they transform. Your next great idea is not hiding inside your own head. It is waiting for you in a conversation you have not had yet. The pressure to be a lone genius creates a terrible burden that actually stops ideas from coming to you. You feel that you must have the idea all by yourself, that asking for help is cheating, and that collaboration dilutes your ownership. This pressure closes you off, makes you defensive, and convinces you that your ideas are not good enough to share. You hold your half-formed thoughts so tightly that they never get the oxygen they need to grow into something real. But ideas are like sparks. They need fuel to become fire, and other people are the fuel that transforms a spark into a flame. When you share a rough idea with someone, their curiosity, their questions, and their reactions help you see what you could not see alone. They offer perspectives you never considered, connections you never made, and encouragement that keeps you going when you want to quit. The idea becomes better, stronger, and more truly yours because you allowed it to be shaped by others. Letting go of the lone genius myth is not giving up your creative power. It is finally accessing it. Let us look at some of the most celebrated geniuses in history and see how they actually worked, and the truth might surprise you. Einstein did not develop his theories in isolation. He was part of a community of physicists who shared ideas, challenged each other, and built on each other's work. The Beatles did not create their music alone. They spent years playing in clubs, absorbing influences, and pushing each other to new heights of creativity. Steve Jobs did not invent the iPhone by himself. He led a team of brilliant designers and engineers who brought ideas from dozens of different fields together. Every one of these so-called lone geniuses was surrounded by people who shaped their thinking, challenged their assumptions, and contributed to their success. They understood that creativity is social, that the best ideas come from collision, and that isolation is the enemy of innovation. When you stop trying to be the lone genius, you free yourself to draw from the collective intelligence of everyone around you. You become part of something larger than yourself, and that is where the magic happens. You might feel that you do not have a community of creative people to collaborate with, but the truth is that community is everywhere if you know how to look for it. It is in the books you read, where authors from decades ago are having a conversation with you right now. It is in the podcasts you listen to, where experts are sharing their best ideas for you to build upon. It is in the colleagues you work with, the friends you talk to, and the strangers you meet who see the world differently. You do not need a formal mastermind group or a creative collective to benefit from the power of connection. You just need to be open, to share your ideas before they are perfect, and to listen to what others have to say about them. You need to ask questions, to express curiosity, and to let people know that you value their perspective. The moment you start treating creativity as a conversation rather than a solo performance, everything changes. You stop carrying the weight alone, and you start receiving the gifts that others are always ready to give. This chapter is your invitation to step out of the lonely room and into the rich, messy, beautiful world of creative connection. You are going to share one idea this week with someone, not because it is perfect, but because it is alive and wants to grow. You are going to ask them what they think, and you are going to listen without defending or explaining your idea. You are going to notice how their questions open new doors in your mind, doors you did not even know were there. You are going to feel the relief of letting someone else hold the idea with you, of no longer carrying it alone. You are going to see your idea transform in ways you never could have imagined, becoming something better than you could have created in isolation. You are going to realize that you were never meant to be a lone genius, because genius was never a solo act to begin with. The greatest ideas come from the space between people, and that space is where you are meant to live. Chapter 8. Your hands know more than your head. There is a deep wisdom in your hands that your thinking mind cannot access, and it is time to let that wisdom speak. Your hands have been building, making, and creating since you were a child, and they remember things your brain has long forgotten. When you sit and think about an idea, you are using only a small fraction of your creative capacity, the fraction that deals in words and logic. But when you let your hands move, when you draw, build, sculpt, or simply doodle, you access a different kind of intelligence entirely. This is the intelligence that existed before language, the intelligence that built the first tools, painted the first caves, and shaped the world we live in. Your thinking mind can get stuck in loops of overanalysis, asking the same questions over and over without finding answers. Your hands bypass that loop. They show you what you think by letting you see it, touch it, and change it in real time. The ideas that your head cannot solve, your hands often already know. Think about a time when you were struggling to understand something, and then you drew a picture of it and everything became clear. Or you wrote down your messy thoughts, and in the act of writing, you discovered what you actually wanted to say. Or you built a rough version of something, and the problems with it became obvious the moment you held it in your hands. This is the power of physical creation. It externalizes your thinking so you can see it, touch it, and interact with it. When ideas stay inside your head, they can feel solid and complete, but when you try to make them real, you discover the gaps. Those gaps are not failures. They are invitations to learn, to adapt, and to make the idea stronger. Your hands are not just tools for executing what your mind has already figured out. They are partners in the figuring out itself. They know things your mind does not, and they are waiting for you to let them show you. Let us talk about how to bring your hands into the creative process, especially if you do not consider yourself a maker or an artist. You do not need to be a painter, a sculptor, or a craftsperson to benefit from the wisdom of your hands. You just need to pick up a pen and start drawing shapes, lines, and scribbles without worrying about what they look like. You need to build something rough out of cardboard, paper, or clay, something that represents your idea in physical form. You need to write by hand instead of typing, letting the physical act of forming letters slow you down and connect you to your thoughts. These actions might feel childish or silly, but that is exactly the point, because children are the most creative people on earth. They do not wait until they have the perfect idea before they start making. They start making and let the idea emerge from the making. You were that child once, and that child still lives in your hands, waiting for permission to play again. Give that child permission, and watch what your hands can teach you. The digital world has pulled us away from our hands in ways that have quietly damaged our creativity. We type instead of write, we click instead of build, and we consume instead of create. Our hands have become passive instruments for scrolling and tapping, and they have lost the active intelligence they once possessed. When you sit at a keyboard, your hands are serving your thinking mind, translating your words into digital text without adding anything of their own. But when you pick up a pen, a brush, or a piece of clay, your hands become active participants in the creative process. They add texture, imperfection, and surprise. They introduce elements that your thinking mind would never have planned. These elements are not mistakes, they are gifts, and they are the source of originality and authenticity. The digital world has its place, but your hands need the physical world to do their best work. Give them something real to hold, something real to shape, and they will give you something real in return. Consider the difference between planning a meal by thinking about it and actually cooking with your hands in the kitchen. When you just think about it, you stay within the boundaries of what you already know, following recipes and patterns that feel safe. But when you start chopping, mixing, and tasting, your hands begin to improvise, adding a little of this and a little of that based on feel. The meal that emerges is often better than anything you could have planned, because your hands were responding to the ingredients in real time. This is how all creation works, from cooking to writing to building to painting. The plan is just a starting point, and the real magic happens when your hands take over and start making decisions that your mind never considered. Your hands have a kind of muscle memory for creativity, a deep knowing that comes from years of interacting with the physical world. When you trust that knowing, your ideas become richer, more alive, and more truly your own. The next time you are stuck, stop thinking and start doing, and let your hands show you the way. This chapter is your call to action, to put down the device and pick up something real, to let your hands lead for a while. You are going to take one idea that you have been thinking about and represent it in physical form, no matter how rough or ugly it turns out. You are going to draw it, build it, Write it by hand or shape it with your fingers, and you are going to notice what you learn in the process. You are going to see where the gaps are, where the surprises appear, and where the idea starts to transform into something you did not expect. You are going to feel the satisfaction of making something real, something that exists in the world instead of just in your head. You are going to remember that you were born to make things, that your hands are not just for consuming but for creating. The ideas that have been stuck in your head are waiting to be set free through your hands. Give them that freedom, and see what happens when you finally let your hands show you what they know. Chapter 9. The Art of Playing Hooky. There is a powerful creative act that most of us have forgotten how to do, and that act is playing hooky on purpose. Playing hooky does not mean being lazy or avoiding responsibility. It means intentionally stepping away from your obligations to give your mind a break. It means taking a day, an afternoon, or even an hour where you do exactly what you want with no goal, no agenda, and no guilt. This is not procrastination. It is strategic renewal, and it is one of the most powerful tools in the creative toolkit. When you play hooky, you send a clear signal to your brain that you are not a machine and that you trust yourself enough to rest. You give your mind permission to wander, to play, to explore without the pressure of producing anything useful. And in that freedom, your mind often does its most useful work, finding solutions and ideas that were impossible to see while you were grinding. The art of playing hooky is the art of giving yourself the space that your creativity needs to breathe. Think about how differently your mind works when you are doing something just for fun, with no expectation of a result. You are not trying to solve a problem, you are just enjoying yourself, and your mind relaxes into a state of flow. In that state, your brain makes connections it never makes under pressure, and ideas bubble up from places you had forgotten existed. You might be hiking, playing a game, cooking, or just wandering around a new neighborhood, and suddenly a solution appears. This is not a coincidence. It is the result of giving your brain the one thing it needs most, which is freedom from demand. The hours you spend grinding at your desk might feel productive, but they often produce nothing but fatigue and frustration. The hours you spend playing hooky might feel like a waste, but they often produce the breakthrough you have been chasing for weeks. Playing hooky is not an escape from your work. It is a smarter way of doing your work. It is the difference between running on a treadmill and running towards something meaningful. Let us address the guilt that comes with playing hooky, because it is the main reason most people never give themselves this gift. You have been trained to believe that every moment must be accounted for, that rest is laziness, and that fun is a reward for work completed. This training runs deep, and it whispers in your ear whenever you try to take a break, telling you that you should be doing something useful. But this voice is not your friend. It is the voice of burnout, and it is leading you toward exhaustion rather than excellence. Playing hooky is not a reward, it is a necessity, and it is as important to your creative work as sleep is to your physical health. You would not feel guilty for sleeping, because you know your body needs rest to function, and your mind needs the same rest. The guilt you feel is a sign that you have internalized a broken system, a system that values constant production over sustainable creativity. You have permission to set that guilt aside, to let it go, and to give yourself the break you actually need. You might be wondering what playing hooky actually looks like in practice, and how to do it without falling behind on your responsibilities. The key is to schedule it intentionally, to put it on your calendar as a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. You choose a block of time, whether it is 2 hours or a full day, and you protect that time like you would protect a meeting with your most important client. During that time, you do not check email, you do not answer calls, and you do not think about your to-do list. You do something that brings you joy, something that has nothing to do with your work, something that makes you feel alive. You might go to a museum, take a long bike ride, visit a new coffee shop, or simply lie in the grass and watch clouds. The specific activity does not matter as much as the feeling of freedom, the sense that for this time you belong to yourself. You return from your hooky time feeling refreshed, energized, and often carrying a new idea that you never expected to find. This is not a luxury, it is a strategy and it works. Consider the concept of the Sabbath, which exists in many cultures and traditions as a day of rest and renewal. This practice is not just religious, it is deeply practical, recognizing that human beings cannot produce endlessly without breaking. The Sabbath is a form of playing hooky that is built into the rhythm of the week, a day where the usual rules are suspended. You do not work, you do not worry, you simply rest and enjoy being alive. The result is that you return to your work on the other side with more energy, more clarity, and more creativity. You can create your own version of this, a weekly hooky practice that gives your mind a regular chance to reset. It does not have to be a full day. It can be an afternoon, a morning, or even a few hours that you guard fiercely. The consistency of this practice is what makes it powerful, creating a rhythm of work and rest that sustains you over the long term. You are not meant to be in production mode all the time. You are meant to cycle between effort and ease is where the best ideas are born. This chapter is your permission slip to play hooky, to take back time that belongs to you, and to stop feeling guilty about it. You are going to schedule a hooky session for this week, and you are going to treat that appointment as sacred. You are going to turn off your phone, close your laptop, and do something that brings you joy without any goal or agenda. You are going to notice how uncomfortable it feels at first, how your mind reaches for something productive to do, and how you have to remind yourself that this is the work. You are going to stay in that discomfort until it begins to fade, and you start to feel the deep relief of being free. You are going to notice ideas floating into your mind, ideas that had no space to appear when you were grinding. You are going to return to your responsibilities feeling lighter, clearer, and more creative than you have in weeks. You are going to realize that playing hooky was not a waste of time. It was the most productive thing you could have done. And you are going to do it again, because now you know the secret that the most creative people have always known. Chapter 10. Why your bad ideas are the real gold. We have been taught to hide our bad ideas, to bury them deep where no one can see them, and to only present our best polished work to the world. We believe that bad ideas are embarrassing, that they prove we are not as creative as we pretend to be, and that they should be forgotten as quickly as possible. But this fear of bad ideas is one of the biggest obstacles to ever having a great idea, because it shuts down the flow before it can start. The truth is that bad ideas are not the enemy. They are the raw material from which great ideas are made. Every great idea you have ever admired started as a bad idea that someone had the courage to explore anyway. The bad idea is the rough stone, and the great idea is what you get when you are willing to polish it. When you reject your bad ideas, you are rejecting the very path that leads to your best work. The gold is not in the perfect idea that appears fully formed. It is hidden inside the bad ideas that you have been throwing away. Think about the process of brainstorming, where the goal is to generate as many ideas as possible without judging them. This process works because it bypasses your inner critic, the voice that says that is bad and shuts everything down. In a good brainstorming session, you write down the silly ideas, the impossible ideas, and the ideas that make you laugh at how ridiculous they are. And then, often, you look at that list and realize that one of the silly ideas contains a seed of brilliance. You pull that seed out, you water it, you shape it, and it grows into something you never could have reached by starting with a good idea. The bad idea was never bad, it was just unfinished, and it needed someone brave enough to see what was hidden inside. Your bad ideas are not evidence that you lack creativity. They are evidence that you are willing to explore without limits. The person who only allows themselves to have good ideas will have very few ideas at all. The person who allows themselves to have bad ideas will have hundreds, and among them will be the one that changes everything. Let us talk about the inner critic that judges your ideas before they have a chance to breathe, because that critic is the real problem. The critic is not trying to help you, it is trying to protect you from embarrassment, but it is protecting you right out of your best work. When an idea first appears, it is fragile and incomplete, like a seedling just breaking through the soil. The critic sees this fragile thing and says, "That is weak, that will never grow, pull it out before anyone sees it." But every strong tree was once a fragile seedling, and every great idea was once a fragile thought. You need to protect your bad ideas from your own critic long enough for them to show you what they can become. Give them time, give them attention, give them the chance to grow before you decide they are worthless. You might be surprised at how many of your bad ideas, when given the right conditions, turn into something remarkable. The critic does not know what is possible, it only knows what is safe, and safety is not where great ideas come from. Consider some of the most celebrated ideas in history and look at how they started, and you will see a pattern of bad ideas. The first airplane was a bad idea to everyone who thought humans should stay on the ground. The first personal computer was a bad idea to everyone who thought computers were only for governments and universities. The first smartphone was a bad idea to everyone who thought phones were only for making calls. Every one of these ideas was dismissed, laughed at, and called impossible before it became the foundation of a new world. The people who brought these ideas to life were not people who only had good ideas. They were people who were willing to pursue a bad idea until it became good. They saw something in their bad idea that others could not see, and they had the courage to follow it anyway. Your bad idea might be your version of that, the idea that looks foolish now but will look brilliant in hindsight. You will never know if you are too afraid to let it out of the dark. You might be wondering how to work with your bad ideas in a practical way, how to turn them from something embarrassing into something valuable. The first step is to capture them without judgment, to write them down in a place where your critic cannot see them. Keep a notebook or a digital file specifically for your bad ideas, and add to it whenever something strange or silly occurs to you. Do not censor yourself. Do not decide what is good or bad, just write it down and let it be. The second step is to revisit that list after some time has passed, when you have some distance from the ideas. You will often find that ideas you thought were terrible now seem interesting, and ideas you thought were silly now contain a spark of possibility. The third step is to take one of those ideas and play with it, to ask what it might become if you gave it a little attention. You are not committing to anything. You are just exploring, and exploration is where the gold is found. Your bad ideas are not a waste of time. They are the richest vein you have, and it is time to start mining them. This chapter is your invitation to stop hiding your bad ideas and to start celebrating them as the valuable resource they truly are. You are going to make a list of 5 ideas that you have been keeping in the dark, ideas you thought were too silly or too strange to share. You are going to write them down without judgment, and you are going to look at them with fresh eyes, looking for the hidden seed inside each one. You are going to pick one of these ideas and give it a little attention, asking what it might become if you followed it for a while. You are going to notice how freeing it feels to give yourself permission to be bad, how the pressure lifts when you stop trying to be good. You are going to realize that your bad ideas are not a reflection of your ability. They are a sign that you are exploring new territory. The person who never has bad ideas never has any ideas at all, and you are not that person. You are someone who is willing to explore, and your bad ideas are the map of your exploration. Follow them and see where they lead. Chapter 11. The Gentle Art of Receiving. We spend most of our lives in a state of reaching, grabbing, and trying to take what we want from the world. We reach for success, we grab for opportunities, and we try to pull ideas out of the air like we are catching flies. This reaching mode has its place. It helps us pursue goals and take action, but it is not the mode where great ideas arrive. Great ideas arrive when you shift from reaching to receiving, when you stop grabbing and start opening your hands. Receiving is a different energy entirely. It is the energy of openness, trust, and allowing rather than forcing. When you are in receiving mode, you are not trying to make something happen. You are creating a space for something to happen to you. You are like a cup placed under a stream. Not trying to pull the water toward you, but simply being there to catch it when it flows. The gentle art of receiving is one of the most powerful creative practices you can learn, and it begins with a simple shift in your inner posture. Think about the difference between trying to fall asleep and allowing sleep to come to you. When you try to fall asleep, you become tense. You watch the clock and you worry about how much time you are losing. Sleep runs away from you because you are chasing it, and the more you chase, the further it goes. But when you stop trying, when you lie still and let go of the need to sleep, sleep often arrives on its own. This is the exact dynamic that governs creativity, and it is why the gentle art of receiving is so essential. You cannot force an idea any more than you can force sleep. You can only create the conditions where ideas are likely to arrive. Those conditions are relaxation, openness, and a genuine willingness to receive whatever comes. When you are reaching, you are sending a message that you do not trust the universe to provide, that you must take what you need by force. When you are receiving, you are sending a message of trust, and that trust is what allows ideas to feel safe enough to approach you. Let us talk about what receiving actually looks like in practice, because it is not a passive state of doing nothing. Receiving is an active practice of being present, of paying attention, and of recognizing the gifts that are already flowing toward you. It means noticing the small ideas that float by throughout the day, the observations, the connections, the questions that arise. It means treating these small gifts with respect, writing them down, and thanking them for arriving. It means creating a life that is open to surprise, that leaves room for the unexpected, that does not need to control every outcome. Receiving is not about waiting for a single big idea to strike you like lightning. It is about opening yourself to the steady flow of inspiration that is always available. The problem is not that ideas are not coming. It is that you are too busy reaching to notice them. When you stop reaching, you begin to see that ideas are everywhere. They are in the conversations you have, the things you see, the dreams you remember. Your job is not to manufacture them. It is to receive them. You might be thinking that receiving sounds passive and that you need to be active to make things happen in your life. But receiving is not the opposite of action. It is the partner to action, and the two work best when they are balanced. You act when it is time to act, you reach when it is time to reach, and you receive when it is time to receive. The problem is that most of us never learn to receive. We only know how to reach, and we exhaust ourselves in the process. We try to pull ideas out of our heads, to force solutions, to manufacture inspiration, and we end up with nothing but fatigue. But when you learn to receive, you find that ideas come to you more easily, and your action becomes more effective because it is guided by those ideas. You stop running in circles and start moving in a straight line, because you are not chasing, you are following. Receiving does not make you passive, it makes you wise, because you are acting on inspiration rather than desperation. The most effective people in the world are masters of both action and reception, and they know when to use each. Consider the concept of gratitude as a form of receiving, because gratitude opens the door for more gifts to arrive. When you are grateful for what you have, you send a signal that you are a good recipient, that you value what you receive. The universe or life, or whatever you believe in, responds to that signal by sending more. When you are complaining about what you do not have, you send a signal that you are closed, that you do not appreciate what you have, and the flow slows down. This is true for ideas as well, and the practice of appreciating the small ideas you receive leads to bigger ideas arriving. Take a moment each day to notice the ideas that came to you, even the small ones, and say thank you. Write them down, celebrate them, treat them like the gifts they are. You will find that the more you appreciate the small ideas, the more they come and the bigger they get. Receiving is a practice, a muscle that grows stronger with use, and gratitude is the exercise that builds it. Start practicing today, and watch how your relationship with ideas begins to transform. This chapter is your invitation to shift from a life of reaching to a life of receiving, to open your hands and see what lands in them. You are going to practice receiving by spending one day without trying to make anything happen, just noticing what comes to you. You are going to pay attention to the small ideas, the interesting observations, and the moments of insight that arise without effort. You are going to write them down in a notebook, not because they are perfect, but because they are gifts that deserve to be honored. You are going to notice how it feels to be open rather than grasping, to trust rather than force, to allow rather than demand. You are going to see that ideas were never the problem, that they have always been flowing toward you, waiting for you to stop long enough to catch them. You are going to realize that you do not need to chase, you only need to receive, and that receiving is an art you can learn. The stream of ideas is always flowing and you are standing right next to it. All you have to do is turn, open your hands, and let the water fill them. Chapter 12. Silence is not empty, it's full. We have become afraid of silence, and that fear is costing us the deepest source of creativity we have. Silence has been pushed out of our lives by podcasts, music, audiobooks, and the constant hum of notifications that fill every quiet moment. We treat silence as a void to be filled, as emptiness that makes us uncomfortable, as a problem that needs a solution. But silence is not empty. It is full. It is full of the thoughts we never hear because we never stop talking. It is full of the ideas that are drowned out by the noise we use to avoid being alone with ourselves. When you sit in silence, you are not doing nothing. You are listening to the deepest layers of your own mind. You are allowing the surface noise to settle so that what is underneath can finally rise to the top. The ideas you have been chasing are not in the noise. They are in the silence, waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear them. Think about the difference between a crowded room and an empty room, and where you are most likely to have a deep conversation. In a crowded room, the noise makes it hard to hear, and you have to shout to be understood. In an empty room, a whisper is enough, and the quiet allows for words that matter. Your mind works the same way, and the noise you fill it with is the crowd that drowns out the voice you most need to hear. Every podcast you play, every song you stream, every video you watch is adding to the crowd in your head. There is nothing wrong with these things. They are wonderful in their place, but they have taken over the empty room. The voice of your own intuition, your own creativity, your own deepest knowing cannot compete with the noise. It does not shout, it whispers, and you cannot hear a whisper in a room full of shouting. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of space, and space is what allows the whisper to become audible. Let us talk about what happens when you intentionally invite silence into your life, and why it feels so uncomfortable at first. When you turn off the noise, you are left alone with your thoughts, and that can be scary for people who are used to running from them. Your mind might race, your anxiety might rise, and you might feel an almost physical urge to reach for your phone. This is not a sign that silence is bad for you. It is a sign that you have been avoiding yourself for a very long time. The discomfort you feel is the sound of your own mind stretching, waking up, and beginning to speak after being silenced by noise. If you stay with the discomfort, it will pass, and what comes after is a deep sense of peace and clarity. You will begin to hear things you had forgotten, thoughts that had been buried, ideas that had no space to form. The silence becomes a friend, a refuge, a place where you can finally hear yourself think. And in that hearing, you will find the creativity that has been waiting for you all along. You might be wondering how to bring more silence into a life that feels already too full, and the answer is to start small. You do not need to spend hours in silent meditation. You just need to create small pockets of silence throughout your day. Turn off the radio in the car and drive in silence, noticing what thoughts arise when the noise is gone. Leave your phone in another room while you eat breakfast, and let your mind wake up slowly without input. Take 5 minutes before bed to sit quietly, without a book or a screen, and let your mind settle from the day. These small moments add up, and they begin to change your relationship with silence from fear to comfort. You will start to crave these moments, to look forward to them, to protect them as essential parts of your day. The silence will become a place you visit regularly, and each time you visit, you will find something new. The ideas that come in silence are not like the ideas that come in noise. They are deeper, clearer, and more truly yours. Start with 5 minutes today and see what the silence has to tell you. Consider the practice of silence in the lives of the most creative people throughout history, and you will see a clear pattern. Many of them built regular periods of silence into their daily routines, protecting this time as fiercely as they protected their work time. They understood that noise is the enemy of depth, and that without silence, their work would remain shallow. They took long walks alone. They sat in rooms without speaking. They spent hours in nature without distraction. They were not being antisocial or wasting time. They were feeding their creativity at its deepest source. The silence gave them access to the parts of their mind that only speak when they are not being shouted at. It allowed them to hear the subtle connections, the quiet insights, the gentle nudges that led to their greatest work. You have the same access. The same silence is available to you, waiting for you to claim it. The only thing standing between you and that silence is the habit of filling it, and habits can be changed. This chapter is your invitation to stop fearing silence and to start seeing it as the rich, full space that it truly is. You are going to create one pocket of silence in your day, just 10 minutes, where you turn off all noise and sit with yourself. You are going to notice the discomfort, and you are going to stay with it, knowing that it is the doorway to something deeper. You are going to let your thoughts rise and fall without grabbing onto them, just watching what comes and goes. You are going to be surprised by what you hear, by the ideas that float up, by the clarity that emerges when the noise settles. You are going to realize that you are not empty. You are full of thoughts and ideas and insights that you never had time to notice. The silence is not a void. It is a mirror, and it shows you who you really are when you stop performing. You are going to return to this silence again and again, because you will learn that it is where your best ideas live. And you will wonder why you spent so long running from something that was always trying to give you everything. Chapter 13. Trust the timer, not the clock. There is a tyranny in the way we measure time, a tyranny that crushes creativity under the weight of the clock. The clock is a long, endless line that stretches from morning to night, and it makes every hour feel like a debt to be paid. When you look at the clock, you see how much time you have left, how much you have wasted, and how far behind you are. This relationship with time creates pressure, and pressure is the enemy of creative thought. But there is another way to relate to time, a way that uses a timer instead of a clock, and it changes everything. A timer is a container, a small box of time that you fill with focused attention, and when it ends, you are done. You do not look at the timer and worry about what comes after. You only look at the time you have right now. This small shift from clock to timer can transform your creative practice from a source of stress to a source of joy. Think about how your mind changes when you set a timer for 20 minutes and tell yourself that is all you have to do. The pressure lifts because you are not looking at the whole day. You are looking at a small, manageable block of time. Your mind knows that it only has to show up for 20 minutes, and that feels easy, even fun. You dive in with less resistance, you play, you experiment, and often you find that you want to keep going when the timer ends. But if you had started with the expectation of working for hours, you might never have started at all. The timer gives you permission to begin without the weight of the whole project pressing down on you. It makes the impossible feel possible, and it turns a mountain into a series of small, climbable hills. The timer is not a limitation, it is a liberation, and it is one of the most powerful tools you have for getting out of your own way. Let us talk about how to use timers in your creative practice, because the way you use them matters as much as the decision to use them. The key is to set the timer for a short enough period that you feel no resistance to starting, usually between 10 and 25 minutes. During that time, you do nothing but the task at hand. No checking email, no switching tabs, no letting your mind wander. You are creating a container where the only thing that exists is your creative work, and the container is small enough that it does not feel threatening. When the timer goes off, you stop, even if you are in the middle of something, and you take a break. This stopping is important because it teaches your brain that you keep your promises, that the container is real, and that there will always be another container. You build trust with yourself through this practice. Trust that you can show up for short periods and that you will be rewarded with a break. Over time, you can extend the timer, but always starting with a small container keeps the resistance low and the creativity high. You might be skeptical that such a simple practice can make a difference, but the power is in the psychology behind it. When you look at the clock, you are looking at an infinite expanse, and the infinite is paralyzing. When you look at a timer, you are looking at a finite container, and the finite is freeing. Your brain knows how to handle a small container. It can focus, it can play, it can create without fear of being trapped forever. The timer is a boundary, and creativity loves boundaries because boundaries give shape to possibility. Think about a poem. It has strict boundaries of rhythm and rhyme, and within those boundaries, infinite expression is possible. Your creative time needs the same kind of boundaries, and the timer provides them simply and beautifully. You are not limiting your creativity. You are giving it a structure within which it can flourish. The clock asks you to consider the whole mountain. The timer asks you to take one step, and one step is always possible. Consider the difference between a sprinter and a marathon runner and how they think about time. The marathon runner looks at the long road ahead and paces themselves for the distance, conserving energy and managing their output. The sprinter looks at a short, intense burst of effort, gives everything they have, and then rests. Your creative practice needs to be more like a sprinter than a marathon runner, especially when you are stuck. Short, focused bursts of creative effort followed by real rest will produce more than hours of grinding ever could. The timer gives you permission to sprint, to give your full attention for a short period, knowing that rest is coming. This rhythm of sprint and rest matches how your brain naturally works, with cycles of focus and recovery. When you try to force your brain to work like a marathon runner, it rebels, it gets tired, and it stops being creative. The timer honors your brain's natural rhythm, and it works with you instead of against you. Start sprinting with a timer today, and watch how much more you get done with less effort. This chapter is your invitation to break up with the clock and start a relationship with the timer, to change how you think about creative time. You are going to set a timer for 15 minutes right now, and you are going to work on something creative with no pressure to finish. You are going to notice how different it feels to have a container, to know that this is all you have to do. You are going to give your full attention to the work, knowing that when the timer goes off, you are free. You are going to be surprised by how much you can do in 15 minutes when you are not thinking about the hours ahead. You are going to stop when the timer goes off, and you are going to take a real break, letting your mind rest. You are going to come back to the timer again and again, building a practice of short, focused creative sprints. You are going to realize that you never needed more time. You needed a better relationship with the time you have. The timer gives you that relationship, and it gives you the freedom to create without the weight of the clock on your shoulders. Chapter 14. When the idea comes, don't strangle it. After all this work of creating space, practicing patience, and learning to receive, the idea will finally come. It will arrive in a moment you least expect, a flash of clarity, a whisper of possibility, a thought that feels like a gift. And in that moment, everything you have learned will be tested, because your instinct will be to grab it and squeeze it until it is perfect. You will want to analyze it, judge it, compare it to other ideas, and decide whether it is good enough. You will want to protect it from being seen, to polish it before anyone else can see it, to make it safe. But if you do this, you will strangle the idea before it has a chance to breathe. An idea in its first moment is like a newborn, fragile and tender, and it needs gentle handling, not a tight grip. Your job when the idea comes is not to perfect it, it is to welcome it, to give it space, and to let it grow at its own pace. Think about how a gardener treats a seedling that has just emerged from the soil. They do not pull on it to make it grow faster. They do not judge it for being small. They do not compare it to the full-grown plants nearby. They water it gently, they protect it from harsh weather, and they wait. They trust that the seed knows how to become a plant, and their job is simply to create the conditions for that to happen. Your ideas need the same gentle care, and they need you to be the patient gardener, not the impatient farmer. When you squeeze an idea with analysis and criticism, you are pulling on the seedling, and you will break it. When you rush it to be finished, you are denying it the time it needs to develop its full strength. The greatest ideas are not the ones that were perfect on day one. They are the ones that were given time to grow. Your job is to be the guardian of the idea, not the executioner, and to trust that it knows what it needs to become. Let us talk about the inner critic that wakes up the moment a new idea appears, because that critic is the biggest threat to your idea's survival. The critic sees the new idea, small and imperfect, and sees a target. It says this idea is not original. It says this idea is too simple. It says this idea will never work. It points out all the flaws, all the reasons to give up, all the ways you might fail. This is not because the critic wants to help you. It is because the critic is afraid and it wants you to stay safe. The critic would rather you have no idea at all than an idea that might fail, because failure is dangerous to the critic's sense of safety. But you are not here to be safe. You are here to create, and creating requires risk. When the idea comes, you must recognize the critic's voice, and you must choose to ignore it. You must protect the idea from the critic long enough for it to grow strong. And that protection is one of the most important creative acts you can perform. You might be wondering how to protect an idea without holding it so tightly that you strangle it, and the answer is balance. You protect the idea by giving it space, by not forcing it to be perfect, by letting it exist in its rough form. You write it down, you share it with someone you trust, you let it sit in your notebook without demanding anything from it. You do not immediately try to figure out how it will work, or how it will be received, or how you will execute it. You let the idea be what it is, a possibility, a seed, a beginning, and you honor it for that. You return to it gently, giving it a little attention, a little curiosity, asking what it wants to become. You do not grab it and force it to become something before it is ready. You let it unfold at its own speed. This balance between protection and freedom is the art of nurturing an idea, and it takes practice to learn. But the more you practice, the more your ideas will grow, and the more you will trust the process. Consider what happens when you let an idea breathe instead of strangling it, and you will see a beautiful transformation. The idea that seemed simple becomes complex. The idea that seemed silly becomes profound. The idea that seemed impossible becomes inevitable. It grows in directions you never expected. It connects to other ideas you had forgotten. It reveals depths you did not know were there. This growth does not happen because you forced it. It happens because you gave it the conditions it needed. You gave it time, you gave it safety, you gave it curiosity, and it responded by becoming more than you could have imagined. This is the magic of creativity, and it is available to you every time an idea arrives. You do not have to be the one who makes the idea great. You just have to be the one who lets it become great. Your job is to be the midwife, not the mother, to help the idea be born, not to give it life. The idea has its own life, its own energy, its own path, and your job is to get out of its way. This chapter is your reminder to be gentle with yourself and with your ideas, to treat each new idea as the gift that it is. The next time an idea arrives, you are going to pause, you are going to take a breath, and you are going to welcome it without judgment. You are going to write it down in the gentlest way possible, without analyzing or criticizing or comparing. You are going to thank the idea for coming, and you are going to give it space to rest. You are going to protect it from your inner critic, not by arguing with the critic, but by simply refusing to engage. You are going to come back to the idea later with curiosity, asking what it wants to become rather than telling it what to be. You are going to be patient, trusting that the idea knows its own path, and that your role is to support, not to control. You are going to watch the idea grow, and you are going to be amazed at what it becomes when you give it the chance. The idea has been waiting for you to be ready, and now you are, so welcome it with open hands and see where it takes you. Chapter 15. A New Way to Move Through the World. Everything you have learned in this book has been leading to this moment, the moment where you stop seeing creativity as something you do and start seeing it as something you are. You have learned to stop chasing, to create space, to trust the process, and to welcome ideas when they come. But the final transformation is not about changing what you do. It is about changing who you are in the world. It is about moving through life with an open hand instead of a clenched fist, with curiosity instead of desperation. It is about trusting that the ideas you need will find you when you are ready for them, and that you do not need to force anything. This is a new way of being, a way that is rooted in trust, patience, and a deep understanding of how creativity actually works. When you live this way, you are not waiting for ideas. You are living in a constant state of receptivity. And in that state, ideas do not just come occasionally, they flow through you like water through a stream. You become a channel for creativity, not a container for it, and that is where true freedom lies. Think about how different your life feels when you move through the world with a clenched fist, always reaching, always grabbing, always trying to take. This posture is exhausting. It keeps your muscles tight, your mind racing, and your heart closed. You see the world as a place of scarcity where you must take what you need before someone else does. But when you move with an open hand, everything changes. Your shoulders drop, your breath deepens, and your heart opens. You see the world as a place of abundance, where gifts are always flowing and where you have only to receive. This is not just a metaphor. It is a physical and emotional reality that affects everything you do. Your creativity is not separate from the rest of your life. It is woven through every moment, every interaction, every choice. When you live with an open hand, you invite creativity into every part of your day, not just the hours you set aside for work. You become a person who is always creating, not because you are always working, but because you are always alive to possibility. Let us talk about what this new way of moving through the world looks like in practice, in the small moments of your daily life. It means walking through your neighborhood with your eyes open, noticing things you never noticed before, letting the world speak to you. It means having conversations where you listen more than you talk, where you receive what others are offering instead of waiting to make your point. It means approaching problems with curiosity instead of frustration, asking what they have to teach you rather than demanding they go away. It means treating every experience, good or bad, as material for your creative life, as something that will feed your work. It means letting go of the need to control outcomes, trusting that what is meant for you will find you. It means being kind to yourself when things do not go as planned, knowing that the path is not always straight. It means waking up each day with a sense of wonder, asking what the day will bring instead of telling it what to do. This is not a set of techniques. It is a way of being, and it is available to you right now. You might be wondering how to make this shift permanent, how to live with an open hand even when life gets hard. The answer is practice, the same way you practice any skill, by doing it over and over until it becomes natural. You will forget sometimes. You will clench your fist again and you will feel the old tension return. When that happens, you do not judge yourself, you simply notice and you open your hand again. This is not about being perfect. It is about being willing to return to openness again and again. Each time you return, it gets a little easier, and the open hand becomes more of your natural state. You will find that living this way does not just improve your creativity, it improves everything. Your relationships deepen because you are truly present, your work improves because you are not forcing it, and your stress decreases because you are not fighting the world. The open hand is not just a creative practice, it is a way of living a richer, fuller, more peaceful life. And it is waiting for you to choose it, not once but every day. Consider the people you admire, the ones who seem to have an endless flow of ideas, the ones who are always creating and always generous. They are not people who have figured out some secret technique that you have not. They are people who have learned to live with open hands. They have stopped chasing and started receiving. They have stopped forcing and started trusting. They have stopped clenching and started releasing. They move through the world with a lightness that comes from knowing that they do not have to control everything. They are not afraid of failure because they know that every experience is material and that nothing is wasted. They are not desperate for success because they have learned to find joy in the process itself. They are not competitive because they know that abundance is real and that there is enough for everyone. You can become one of these people, not by imitating them, but by making the same shift they made. The shift from chasing to attracting, from forcing to allowing, from closed to open. That shift is available to you, right now in this moment, and it will change everything. This chapter is your invitation to step into this new way of being, to leave behind the exhausted hunter and become the calm, open person you were always meant to be. You are going to practice moving through your day with an open hand, noticing when you clench and choosing to release. You are going to approach challenges with curiosity, asking what they have to offer instead of demanding they go away. You are going to listen more, talk less, and receive the gifts that others are offering you. You are going to trust that you have everything you need, that ideas will come when they are ready, and that you do not have to force anything. You are going to wake up each day with a sense of wonder, excited to see what the day will bring. You are going to fail sometimes, and you are going to learn from those failures, letting them feed your creativity rather than defeat it. You are going to become a person who attracts ideas, a person who is a magnet for creativity, a person who lives with open hands. And you are going to discover that the life you wanted, the ideas you chased, the creativity you sought, were never outside of you. They were always inside, waiting for you to stop chasing long enough to let them out. Conclusion. You came to this book looking for a way to find great ideas, and you have discovered something far more valuable. You have discovered that great ideas do not come from chasing. They come from creating the conditions where they can arrive on their own. You have learned that your mind works best when it is relaxed, that emptiness is not a void but a magnet, and that silence is not empty but full. You have learned that bad ideas are the raw material of great ones, that your hands know what your head does not, and that playing hooky is a creative act. You have learned to ask questions and then get out of the way, to receive rather than grab, and to move through the world with open hands. All of these lessons are not separate techniques. They are part of one simple truth. You were never meant to chase ideas. You were meant to be a person that ideas want to find, a person who is open, curious, patient, and alive. That person has been inside you all along, waiting for you to stop running long enough to become them. The greatest idea you have been chasing your whole life is not a project, a business, or a masterpiece. The greatest idea is the person you become when you stop chasing, the peace you feel when you stop forcing, the joy you find when you stop grasping. That person is creative not because they work harder, but because they live more fully. That person attracts ideas not because they are smarter, but because they are more open. That person does not wait for a breakthrough, because they have realized that the breakthrough was learning to stop waiting and start living. So go now, with open hands and a quiet mind, and live the life that has been waiting for you. Stop chasing, start being, and watch what arrives. The ideas will come, the creativity will flow, and you will finally understand that you were never lacking. You were just chasing what was already inside you, and now you know how to let it out.